And now onto our presenters to pass off to Mike and Mark. So Mike and Mark are both Stanford grads. Mike has done a previous event for us where we were able to get together in person. We missed those days and we are looking forward to them coming back. But in the meantime, we really appreciate Mike and Mark coming and talking to us on this very important topic. And now I will pass over the screen to Mark.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Donna. And it's a pleasure for us to be back with everyone, both from the villages and the Stanford Alumni Club. I am a Stanford, we're both Stanford alums. I actually live in San Francisco, although our office is right by campus in Palo Alto, just on the other side of 101. So we're definitely part of the Stanford community, proud members of that. And it's wonderful to be connecting with so many people from both these communities. So as we get started, we're going to tell you about, we're going to give you some mysteries, and we're going to walk you through a bunch of very important issues related to what we're talking about here, multi-generational planning for long-term care. We're going to explain exactly what that means and why it's so important as we go through this. And as we get started, think about the issues that are on your mind, the things that are getting you worried. Are you worried about your finances? Are you worried about your health? Are you worried about the cost and quality of long-term care? I mean, we are living in unprecedented times. Or do you just feel overwhelmed? I mean, with all this stuff, we're all dealing with stuff we've never had to deal with before, but that doesn't make these other issues go away. The issue of long-term care is something we all have to be aware of. As I just mentioned, there is chaos everywhere we turn. What's happening with the vaccine? What's happening with the economy? When are we reopening? What's happening with the stock market? It can be crazy, and it can get us to lose sight of some of the issues we really have to pay attention to and that we have to work with our families to solve. And that's what we're here for. We're here to help, in plain English, explain what these issues are and how you can take steps to protect yourself and your family to provide for a wonderful and prosperous future. That's what really this is about. Let's take a moment to think of what images come to mind when we think about retirement and the post-professional stages of our lives. And I think most of us have some sort of image, at least we like to think, like the one I have up on the screen, of sailing around the Mediterranean or the Pacific Ocean. Although ironically, right now I've read stories about people who decided to do that a few months ago and now they're stuck and they can't port anywhere. So even sailing the seas is not always as good as it seems. And that's wonderful if you can do it. It might get boring after a few years. But the reality is not quite as simple. And just to frame our thinking around this, I want us to take just a moment to look at some of the risks that we prepare for or that we get insurance for. And I want to compare it to the risk that we're going to need long-term care. So let's talk about home insurance. If you have a house or a condo, you got to have certain types of insurance to protect against fires or other catastrophic events that can mess up your house. Virtually everyone has to have this insurance, but the odds that your house could be destroyed or messed up in a fire, about 3 in 1,000, 0.3%, very unlikely. And yet we all take a lot of steps to protect our home. Many people get earthquake insurance. I have that. It's expensive. I hope I never need it. It's very unlikely I will, but yet I get that. I think about it. I plan ahead for that. Let's look at other areas. Your car, we all have auto insurance. Yeah, we have to have it by law, but the reality is the odds that your car is actually going to get totaled are luckily pretty low. I wish it was even lower than this, but about 23 in 1,000, 2.3%. Now let's think about long-term care. We're going to define exactly what that means in a moment. But what are the odds that we're going to need some form of long-term care? Well, the odds are incredibly high, 700 in 1,000. 70% of people over the age of 65 are going to need some form of long-term care. And yet most of us don't really think about that. Most of us don't really plan ahead for that. That's what we're here to talk about. As I said, 70%, and that number has been pretty steady over the last several years. And we are living longer, we're staying healthier longer physically, but we have not solved issues related to dementia. So even as we're living longer, a lot of people still need a lot of assistance as we get older. So again, our goal here is to show you how to prepare for paying for the cost of home care. If you have to go to assisted living facilities, or if you have to go to a nursing home, no one wants that, but sometimes you need that. We want to explain how you can pay for those things, and how you can protect your assets and not lose everything you worked your whole life for, because there are so many catastrophic stories. You work so hard, you save up money, and in the last 5 years of life, you lose everything. And that's what we're here to talk about.
So we'll just take a minute. We'll revisit this topic of the need for long-term care. So what does that mean? And by the way, you know, I'm part of that group. I'm over that age. So, you know, this stuff is very personal. It's in every single family. It's not just for those older people. We're all family members. So we have parents, grandparents. It's relevant, you know. So everybody who's here is a little bit younger, by the way, from the Stanford crowd. Good for you. You know, we keep saying we deal in reality. So these are great things to drink in and really understand. It'll be healthy for you and healthy for your family. Okay, so long-term care is actually kind of a spectrum. It is not synonymous with being in a nursing home. You might be at home and you need a lot of assistance. You might have to hire somebody to come in just to help with laundry. You might need help with bathing, medications. It could be much more substantial. Long-term care also includes, let's call it intermediate, where you move out of your home, you're not in a nursing home, assisted living. That's where you might be in a unit, an apartment, you're in a building where there are folks available to help you out, but not necessarily. So the more help you need, the more it costs. So you sort of maximize your independence, but help is there when you need it. Okay, at the extreme end of long-term care spectrum is certainly nursing home care. Sometimes, as Mark said, sometimes unavoidable. Not anything we want. And actually, when we talk a little bit more about how somebody can protect assets and qualify for Medi-Cal, a government program to pay, our system is backwards. Our system is backwards. It's hard to get government programs to pay for home care and assisted living. It's relatively easy if you know how to do it, to get a government program to pay nursing home bills. So, you know, the incentive, right, should be to stay at home and get assistance there. Harder to do, but it can be done if you know the ropes. Okay, the cost, it can be $3,000 a month, it can be $12,000 a month, it can be much more than that. Being at home doesn't necessarily mean that it's a whole lot less expensive than nursing home care. It can be more expensive. You know, if you need 24/7 care, 2 or 3 shifts, there's new overtime rules that have restricted the flexibility that a lot of agencies had. A lot of folks pay under the table. They take a lot of risks. The cost is enormous, and it's something we just have to be realistic about, understand hopefully in advance so that you're not caught unaware. Now, we do a lot of planning in advance. We do a lot of crisis planning. Better to plan in advance, of course.
And as a side note, please submit questions to the chat function. We'll try to get to them at the end if we have time. We can't really answer them as we go, so we can stay on track, but please feel free to submit questions. We'll get to as many as we can at the end.
Yeah, and by the way, from the last 2 webinars that we've given, you know, we realize there's a lot of folks who have a lot of practical questions. We're going to come back to that at the end, kind of an offer, just to make sure that you can all get taken care of. Okay, now we're going to give you 3 mysteries. You know, we can talk about the rules
4.
and 4 mysteries. Wow, see, that was a mystery to me. This is very cool. Okay, so, you know, we can tick through the rules, but when you see kind of real life examples, it really brings it home. So, you know, let's get into these with us, and I think you'll really appreciate the wisdom and the lessons that we can draw from these. So first of all, we're going to focus on the residents. And now again, in the context of long-term care. So we have a couple of individuals here, similar situations to a very large extent. Lena owned her own home, and she took advantage of the equity in her home, the only money she had, to pay for home care assistance. She didn't want to go into a nursing home. So she took a couple of steps that we'll revisit later. As a result of the approach that she chose, her family lost over $600,000. That much was removed from her estate, okay? Helen, analogous situation, she owned her home. She also used the equity in her home as a way to find resources to pay for the cost of home care. And yet, no $600,000 loss. The entire value of her house, all the equity, was preserved for the next generation. So here we go. How can that be? What's the mystery here?
Now let's talk about 2 different long-term care insurance policies, George versus Alan. Imagine them in the same general situation up front. They both pay $3,200 per year in annual premiums for 18 years. George didn't need long-term care. He's in that lucky 30%. Didn't use the insurance. His family got nothing. All the money he spent on the insurance policy is just lost because he never took it. He never needed long-term care. Alan, on the other hand, also paid premium for 18 years, didn't need long-term care. When he passed away, his family got $180,000. What was the difference? What's the mystery? How did they set things up differently to leave their families in such different situations?
Good, and now we'll look at life insurance, and we'll look at Paul and Greg. Slightly different numbers, but conceptually they had similar situations. Okay, so Paul's life insurance policy had a $500,000 death benefit, and it was a whole life policy, so it built up cash value. It had $60,000 cash value when he ran into some financial constraints, didn't want to keep making his payments, etc. Okay, Greg, slightly lower death benefit, about $380,000. He built up about $40,000 in cash value in his. Both of them, for their own reasons, said, you know, I'm done. They stopped paying premiums. Okay, so Paul, well, his entire policy evaporated. All the money he put into it was lost. Did him no good at all. Greg, used his life insurance policy and found a way to utilize money from that to pay for his home health care. Okay, very different. So again, how can this be? What's the mystery here? So this, by the way, this is a point that I made a moment ago about the varying levels of cost. So, you know, home care, again, where we start to think that it's going to cost a whole lot less, and it can, but $2,000 to $10,000 is kind of routine. We have seen countless situations where it is dramatically higher. See, so when you think about this, you think about what are my resources, what's my income, can I afford this, you know, if I need it someday. Okay, residential care or assisted living. Usually no less than $4,000 a month. We have 3, but around here, $4,000 a month minimum. 10, 12 grand a month. Again, the more help you need, the more money you're going to pay, which is somewhat logical. So your eyes are open when you go into one of these facilities. And then skilled nursing care, $8,000 to $16,000 a month. There are facilities that cost a lot more. In New York City, there's some that are over $25,000 each month. Very substantial. Okay, so when you start to think about this, one of the first thoughts that most of us have is that Medicare, which you get when you get it automatically, you've been paying into the system. If you get Social Security, you're going to get Medicare. Well, isn't Medicare going to help me pay for the cost of long-term care? You know, no, it really doesn't. There's little benefits here and there, very limited. So do not think that Medicare is going to be there to pay for the cost of care. Now, most people over the age of 60 believe that it will pay, and that's a terrible thing, because if you believe that Medicare is going to pay for care, that means you're not going to plan. You're going to relax. You think you got it taken care of. It's a catastrophic mistake because it doesn't do it.
Yeah, and now one last mystery. This is the fourth. Let's compare Lois and William. And Lois and William are actually in very different situations. Lois has $100,000 to her name. She doesn't have that much. That's not enough to pay for long-term care for very long, unfortunately. And she needed to go to a nursing home. She ended up spending everything before Medi-Cal stepped in and helped pay for the cost of nursing home care. She basically ended up broke. William, on the other hand, had a large estate, a $4 million estate. That's a lot of money. And because he situated his assets differently, he had to go to a nursing home, and Medi-Cal paid for virtually all of it from day one. How is this possible? What is the mystery? And again, as Mike said, do not use logic when it comes to the rules of Medi-Cal eligibility and how you can be situated to get help from the state.
Hey Mark, I bet William had a good lawyer. What do you think?
That's right. That's right. Let's not.
Part of the answer to the mystery.
Yeah, but we'll explain what this all means. And we think that the real mystery is that most people don't get answers, or you Google something and you get a partial answer. And you know, an insurance person will give you one answer, a financial advisor will give you another answer, a realtor will give you another answer. They're not all wrong. It's just you need to look at it holistically. And we often serve as the linchpins of this. We have to think about this for our clients from all angles. And your legal plan is part of this. But the key, you know, what we want to do is educate and empower you, so you at least know what the options are, and you can decide how you want to take action and if any of these apply to you. And there absolutely is a cost to waiting. It's never too late to start planning, but certainly the sooner you start, the better situated you and your family will be. And if you're listening here or taking part in this today for your parents, this is an ideal time for you to help your parents plan ahead, or for you to take some actions for your own family. So we just want to take a moment to for those of you who don't know us, just give you a little bit of background about where we come from and who we are. We think that's important, so you understand just where we got to where we are and how we think about this. So let me introduce, first of all, Michael Gilfix. I've known him for well over 35 years, because clearly he's my father. And he's really done some incredible work in the field of especially elder law and estate planning, but graduated from Stanford undergrad in 1970, Stanford Law in 1973. When he graduated, I think this is really poignant and important for what we're talking about today. He was a social entrepreneur. He didn't want to just join a big firm or a big corporation. He wanted to help people and he wanted to change the world. So he looked for communities that were underserved who needed help. And one of the key communities where he saw a gap in resources was the elderly and older Americans. And so he set out to fix that. He built America's first free legal aid program for the elderly, SOLACE, Senior Adults Legal Assistance. It was, again, the very first free legal aid program for older Americans in the country. He started that. He went around the country raising money and teaching other people to start these programs around the country. So he was directly and indirectly responsible for free legal services for thousands and thousands of older Americans, and really helped to shape the field of elder law as it stands today. Written countless books. He's written countless articles. He's been in national media, been on the radio. He's been a leader in the field. And in 1983, he transitioned from running nonprofits to Gilfix and the Palo, the practice that we have today, because he had me, and then he had my older of my two younger sisters, and realized he needed to make somewhat of a living staying in Palo Alto, and started Gilfix and the Palo, but held on to his values of really serving families, and remained a leader through the 80s, through the 90s, through the 2000s. It's been pretty incredible. He writes articles all the time. We've co-authored a couple books. He's also a top 10 national racer in 5Ks in his age group. And I also always point out that through all of this, he always found time to coach our teams. This is a Palo Alto Little League team photo from my 1990 Outhouse Realty. We were the majors of Little League team. I'm the bottom left. Mike is the top right. He coached all my sister's basketball teams as well. We also go to as many Stanford basketball and football games as we can. But without further ado, I want to introduce Michael Gilfix.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And I'll take a moment and introduce Mark. We'll just make this, again, it is good to kind of know who we are, not just that we're talking heads and go through these points. So Mark, as you know, went to Stanford undergrad, 2001. His degree was in management science and engineering, kind of perfect for the Bay Area, right, in so many ways, the tech center. He got a job right out of school with one of the top international management consulting firms. He advised Fortune 500 companies. Department of Defense was a big client, was involved with their venture capital group in Southern California. So brought this wealth of experience at kind of the macro level, where I've always been kind of dealing street level, I guess, with folks. So it's been tremendous for our firm and our practice and perspective. So he brings just a wealth of expertise and experience. He went to Loyola Law School, was top graduate. He was the class speaker, which is kind of a privilege and a responsibility. So right at the very top of that, for the law folks, he was Order of the Coif, which is like the Phi Beta Kappa of law school. Since Mark became a lawyer about 6-7 years ago, he has emerged. He's won a couple of national writing awards. I didn't set them up. These were legit. As Mark said, a lot of writing. He too has been speaking all over the country at national conferences. Very recently, we spoke at a conference in Philadelphia for countless attorneys on special needs planning, tax planning. While Mark was doing all of this in Southern California, by the way, for the fun of it, as an avocation, he got into the world of acting on top of everything else, and enjoyed actually considerable success. He's a number of television shows. He had the lead in a number of feature films, national commercials. Some still resurface every once in a while. Yeah. And one of the things that I think is very, very cool, by the way, is you met him, because back when Siri was introduced to the world, there was this young actor running along the Embarcadero talking with Siri. It was Mark. You met him, you didn't know it was him. Everybody saw this. It was everywhere in the media, everywhere in the internet world. So, you know, again, you get to revisit Mark and sort of re-experience that relationship with Siri.
Yes, and if you've seen our other webinars, I always feel a need to apologize for any issues you've had with Siri. I just helped publicize it. I had nothing to do with developing it, and it didn't work even when we were filming the Siri ad. So for any Apple engineers here, sorry, but you guys are awesome otherwise. So I think one point we want to make is long-term care planning, to get back to the subject here. So good you know us, we'll spend no more time on us. It's multifaceted. We wish there was some perfect solution to this, but there isn't. Every situation is different. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. Your legal, your estate plan, your trust, power of attorney, advance directive, they have to be in place to lay that groundwork. I mean, that's really how we serve families directly. But we're solution agnostic. As I mentioned, we don't have a bias for or against different solutions, whether it comes to home equity, investing, insurance, or different tools. We just want you to understand how they all fit together and some of the risks and pitfalls that are associated with certain planning approaches. So, and critical to this is working across generations. Parent-child can be so powerful. We'll give a couple examples of that. We've written a couple articles specifically about multi-generational planning. Some of them on our website at gilfix.com under publications. You can always email us and we're happy to send those to you. So that's how we think about this. And we practice what we preach. Whenever possible, we serve families on a multi-generational basis. But if nothing else, you should have that conversation with your parents or with your kids if you can. And we're going to go through some examples of where this can be really valuable.
Okay, so let's, maybe each of us as individuals, we should think about this. What's important to you? What's your goal and your objective? Now, 90% of us, 90% of for the younger folks, 90% of your parents, grandparents, they say, I'm staying home. I don't want to go into a nursing home. I'm staying home, period. That's it. It's a matter of independence. It's a matter of comfort. You know your home, you're in your home environment. You're kind of the boss of your environment. Nobody's telling you what to do. It feels better, right? We feel that quality of life and quality of care is going to be much better at home. In most situations, not all, it does cost less. Remember the nursing home cost, but again, the cost of care at home can be off the charts. Now, this is a very complicated topic about, where are you better off? So just a couple of thoughts about that. There have been many studies that look at folks who stay at home, but then what? If you're isolated, even if it's isolated luxury, if you're not seeing people and there's not visits and you're not interacting, that isn't necessarily good for you. A lot of people are very social and they're better in a different environment. Conversely, you could be in a facility where in theory, people are visiting you all the time, but one of the real horrific outcomes of the pandemic has been the lockdown in nursing homes and other facilities. Okay, necessary to keep people from getting infected. But isolation is one of the worst things for our health, and there's nobody watching out for us if we're in a facility of any type. There's been much written about the downside, again, of the lockdown. We want to be physically safe, but what's going on with our mental health? And the other thing, by the way, is if you do have a loved one in a facility, or for that matter, at home, kind of isolated, visiting is so important. It isn't that it's nice. It isn't just nice, it's necessary. We've for years said the key to quality of care in a facility is cookies and thorns, that you should visit often. When you go, you bring cookies for the staff. So you're not anonymous, they know you, they like you, you're that nice daughter of Mrs. Jones kind of thing. So, cookies and being there, and the thorns part of that phrase, cookies and thorns, is you're always a thorn on their side if you see something that isn't good. So what's important to you really comes down to quality of life. What are the values that you want to hold on to, and how can you best capture and retain those values? Okay, so staying at home, we get it, and we plan. In every planning document we have, if you want to stay at home, we take that into account. Okay, now a lot of folks simultaneously or conversely, it's more important or as important to protect assets for the next generation. That can take you down a different path. If you say, I want to stay at home no matter what, you say, spend every penny, and many do. They say that, and they mean it. They say, the most important thing is to be at home. I don't care if it drains my estate. If the last dime in my estate is spent hiring somebody to keep me at home, that's fine. But a lot of folks say, particularly the residents, you really want to save that residence for the next generation. it is impossible around here. I mean, Mark can speak to this better than I. If you're younger and not making a ton of money, buying a house, you know, it's horrific. Excuse me. So asset protection and asset preservation is part of the thinking. And again, our job is to figure out for each individual, you know, how do they fit together? Where are the pressure points? Where are the planning options? Okay, not simple, but it can be done in every single situation. Okay.
So let's start to explore that. Let's revisit the mystery of Lena and Helen. So if you recall, both Lena and Helen own their homes. Let's say they have $1 million in equity. So they bought their house in the 70s for, you know, $30,000. Now it's worth over $1 million. They have over $1 million in equity, but they don't have much else. So they don't really have other options to pay for care. Both of them need some care. Maybe it's at home, wherever they're going to go, they need some cash. They both have kids. Lena took one approach, and as a result, as you recall, she ended up losing, or her family ended up losing $600,000. Helen took a different approach, both accessing equity in their home, that $1 million plus in equity, and as a result of her steps, nothing was lost. All that equity in the home, or all of $600,000 was saved, net to her family. What's the difference? What did they do differently? Well, you might be asking why I have a picture of Tom Selleck on this screen. This is actually a screenshot from a reverse mortgage ad that Tom Selleck did. They rotate between older celebrities. I think they at one point used pictures of Ronald Reagan, because I think he signed the law that allowed reverse mortgage. Now, I want to say up front, reverse mortgages are not always a horrible thing. We're not here to demonize them. We just want to make sure that you understand that there are strings attached, and they're not quite as simple as they might sound if you talk to someone who only deals in reverse mortgages. So Lena didn't talk to her kids. She said, you know what? I have all this equity. I'm going to get a reverse mortgage. I can get all this money out. The interest rate is reasonable. The terms are not horrible. I'm going to do that. She took the money out. Now, what is the problem with reverse mortgages? It goes to when the loan becomes due. If you move out of your home, the home that has the reverse mortgage, and you're out for 6 months or certainly a year, after a year, the loan typically becomes due. So all the money you took out plus interest is owed. Now, if you took out the reverse mortgage, you clearly don't have the money to pay that back. So what happens? The home has to be sold. Now, what happens if the home gets sold while Lena's alive? Well, she bought the home for practically nothing in today's terms. It's now worth over $1 million. She has to sell it. She faces a massive capital gains tax bill. $300,000 capital gains tax bill is owed because you have $1 million gain. Well, you get to protect some of it if it's your primary residence, but a lot of that gain is taxed at over a 30% rate. That's lost. Then all of a sudden, she has a bunch of cash in her name. Let's say she has to go to a nursing home. Well, all of a sudden, the house, we're going to go into the rules in a little more depth in a second. A house is exempt from Medi-Cal eligibility purposes. You can have a multi-million-dollar house, and you can be eligible for Medi-Cal because the state doesn't count the value of your house against eligibility. If you sell the house and you have cash, you're no longer eligible because cash absolutely counts against eligibility. So not only did she lose $300,000 in capital gains taxes, then she was stuck spending a bunch of her leftover cash on nursing home bills that could have been covered via Medi-Cal. The difference, Helen, instead of getting a reverse mortgage, she consulted with us. We worked with her family. Her kids realized that while mom cannot get a home equity loan by herself because she doesn't have income, if we co-sign with her, then we can get that line of credit on the house or just some money cash out. A cash out loan is not, they don't care when Helen moves out, typically. She can move out as long as they keep paying the loan, it's not due. So they didn't trigger a forced sale of the home. They just keep paying the loan off. The home is still in Helen's name. They haven't converted it to cash. She's eligible for Medi-Cal right away. You didn't lose $300,000 in capital gains taxes, and you get help from the state paying for nursing home care virtually from day one. And the house passes to the next generation with a step up in cost basis. So the kids, if they sell the house down the road, they don't have to pay that $300,000 in tax. Net, $600,000 saved for Helen's family because she planned ahead, because she brought her family in, because she involved us, talk about this and come up with a more creative solution. I'll talk about long-term care insurance policies as well. So George and Alan, remember both of them paid $3,200 a year in annual premiums for 18 years. Neither of them needed long-term care. When they passed away, George, because of the policy he chose, his family got nothing. Alan, when he passed away, his family ended up with a $180,000 death benefit. What's the difference? Well, this just really goes to the type of policies that they purchased. So George bought a pure long-term care insurance policy, meaning it would only pay for long-term care there was no death benefit. Alan chose a different option. He chose a hybrid life and long-term care policy, meaning that if he needed long-term care, well, that'd get paid out, and the death benefit would get smaller with each payment made. But if he didn't use any of that long-term care, there's a death benefit. Some of that money comes back to his family. Now, of course, there are trade-offs. If you're paying the same amount each month and one has a death benefit, the other doesn't, well, the pure long-term care policy probably would pay for more long-term care. But overall, a lot of people like that flexibility. A lot of people don't realize you can get these hybrid policies. So if you don't use it, you hope you never do, your family at least gets something back. But just being educated and understanding these options is critical. And in this case, it ended up saving Alan's family $180,000. And again, different options exist. There are annuity options. There are life insurance options. Now, one point I want to make, if you already need long-term care, it's almost certainly too late to buy this type of insurance. This is where planning ahead can be so critical. This is where we see a lot of adult children. Their parents need long-term care, and they see the issues that their parents are facing, and they'll buy long-term care insurance for themselves, even though it might be a little bit too late for mom and dad. But you might be surprised. You might still be able to get this insurance.
And by the way, on long-term care insurance, there is it's a portion, depending on your age, a portion of the cost is tax deductible. So, and you know, while we're talking about some of these specific solutions, so to speak, keep in mind, you know, these are examples. We're not saying long-term care insurance is the best. We're not saying anything is the best. But we want to keep making that point. Agnostic, you know, finding the best solution for a particular family. Okay, now we're going to revisit the life insurance policies and see what the heck happened there. Okay, remember, Paul had the larger policy, $500,000 death benefit, $60,000 cash value. He stopped paying. Value gone. Absolutely no money resulted from that policy. And he put a lot of money into it over the years. Greg, smaller policy, had $40,000 cash value. He at least knew he could have gotten the cash value. Paul just stopped paying. He didn't even get the cash value. He had no advice. He wasn't really as sharp as he used to be when the time came. Okay, so what the heck happened here, and how did Paul, how did Greg find value in his policy and find enough money to pay for the cost of home care, which is exactly what he did, okay? So the main thing to remember about life insurance is that it's an asset. It isn't just a policy that waits until you pass away. It's an asset that you can utilize while you are living. So what the opportunity that Greg took advantage of, rather than just letting the policy lapse, and rather than just cashing in the $40,000, which the insurance companies love, because they don't have to pay off that big death benefit, he was connected by us with somebody who offers life settlements. This came into most visibility with the HIV crisis many, many years ago. So the idea is, you know, you have a life insurance policy. At some point, you are going to pass away, and that as long as the policy is maintained, there's going to be that death benefit. So quite directly stated, there are folks and companies that are in the business of buying life insurance policies. I mean, think about it. If you can pay $112,000 and collect $380,000 in 3 years, if that's somebody's life expectancy, that's a heck of a return on your money. So there are businesses, investors out there who bid. They literally bid to compete to buy your life insurance policy. So by taking that avenue, and the gentleman we worked with scours the countryside to find all of the companies that want to be involved with this, finds the best offer. And in this example, his policy was effectively sold for $112,000. He used that money to pay for home care. I mean, what a remarkable, remarkable difference. So one of our messages is if anybody has a life insurance policy, and particularly if it's a whole life policy with cash value, never surrender it. There's always a better deal out there. It's marketable. It's marketable.
It is an asset.
Yeah.
Now let's revisit Lois and William. If you'll recall, Lois has $100,000 to her name. She had to go to a nursing home. William has $4 million to his name. He also has to go to a nursing home. We don't want that to happen, but sometimes it's necessary. Lois goes to the nursing home. She ends up burning through all of her assets until she's basically broke, and only then does she get help from the Medi-Cal program. William has a $4 million estate, and he has to go to a nursing home, and yet he virtually spends nothing. He's able to preserve almost his entire estate. How is this possible? Well, first, Lois didn't get advice. she thought you had to spend down. And that's a term that Mike and I both hate. We hear that from some people. You got to spend down your assets and then you're eligible for Medi-Cal. So she didn't know of any options. She ended up burning through her assets on the nursing home bills until she was down to $2,000. We're going to go into Medi-Cal eligibility rules in just a moment. Long story short, she ended up losing everything. William, on the other hand, got good advice and he kept the right mix of assets. And what do we mean by the right mix of assets? Again, there are assets that are exempt that don't count as against eligibility for Medi-Cal. So the rules on the surface seem very strict. Mike's going to go into those in a second, but you can have millions in assets, and if they're in the right category, the state doesn't count them. So you can keep money, large amounts of value in your estate, and still get help from Medi-Cal if you plan ahead. And even if you have assets in the wrong category, there are a lot of strategies we can employ to keep those in the family, to transfer those to the next generation with minimal or no penalties. And that's one of the big areas where we help families. So in William, Medi-Cal paid for 80% of the cost of nursing home care. So it paid for virtually everything. Is it fair? No. Does it make sense? No. Is it possible to do this for yourself and your family? Yes. So Mike's going to go through some of the rules for Medi-Cal. We give 2-hour talks just on this subject alone. So we're just going to scratch the surface here. We want to get through a lot. So Mike, why don't you go through Medi-Cal?
Yeah. Okay, so kind of again, Medi-Cal is California's version of the federal Medicaid program. At the national level, we have Medicare, which again, you get automatically because you paid into the system, and you have Medicaid, which generally speaking is a needs-based program. Very importantly, every state's Medicaid program is different. California is perhaps the most different. It's the most unique in the country. And again, we're cute and we're clever, so we call it Medi-Cal here in California. It is possible, as we've already said, and we're going to go through the eligibility rules momentarily. It does elevate the home, the family home. It builds in protections for the family residents. With planning, you can save the assets. We always like to emphasize special needs kids in this context because there's a lot of gifting rules that we're going to go through, but there's an exception in the Medicaid rules at the national level. In every state in the country, any amount of money can be given by somebody going into a nursing home to a special needs child or what's called the special needs trust and qualify for Medicaid the next day. So one of the first questions we ask for folks worried about this, looking into this, is do you happen to have a child with a disability? Because it creates a planning door, okay? So that's part of the overview. Now, eligibility criteria. Let's get a handle on this really quickly. And this is such a hop, skip, and a jump. Our book is like 120 pages that goes through this topic right now. Okay, so eligibility. An individual can't have more, and we're looking at the long-term care context. Different rules for people at home, different rules if you're younger. We're looking at the long-term care context right now. Okay, can't have more than $2,000 in countable assets, because as we continually say, many assets don't count. The residence of any value in California doesn't count. So a single person goes into a nursing home and they own a home, it doesn't interfere. Now, don't call your Aunt Joey in Ohio and say, hey, good news, the home of any value is exempt. Not so. In virtually every other state, there's a cap, which isn't usually any more than $850,000 on the value of a resident. If it's more than that, it's not exempt. In California, it can be a $5, $8, $10, $20 million residence, and it's exempt. It doesn't count. Retirement money. You could have $1 million, $2 million under retirement account. As long as you're taking out the RMD, the required minimum distribution, in California, the money in the retirement accounts also doesn't count. Not everywhere. There's miscellaneous other categories where money can be safely deposited. You can have a burial account, a burial trust, many others. We're not going to go through the other categories of exempt assets, but there are many. There are many. Okay, $2,000 is our magic number. Now, what if you're a married couple and one spouse goes into a nursing home? Again, the one in the nursing home can't have more than $2,000, but the spouse at home has a degree of protection. The spouse at home, on the date of an effective application, can have a minimum, not a maximum, a minimum of about $129,000 in her name. Okay? The Medi-Cal website, by the way, suggests that it's a maximum number. It is a minimum number. We can go to court or what's called an administrative law hearing and increase that level of protection. These are minimums. income. There's also income protection for the spouse at home. If one spouse is in the nursing home and qualifying, let's say their combined income, 2 Social Security checks and a pension for both husband and wife, and it comes to $3,000 total, the spouse at home keeps it all. If the total monthly income for the couple is about $4,000, probably about $800 of that is going to have to be paid to the nursing home. It's called the share of cost, but not necessarily. Again, these are just an overview of the rules. Now, what about gifting? You know, we talked about how we hate that term, spending down. It's true, we do, because that means you didn't get any advice. It means you just spent your money until you're down to $2,000. Obviously, you can do that. Obviously, that's not a good idea. All right, so the rules. So let's do it by a simple example. That's always the best way to do it. Okay, so let's say a single lady moves into a nursing home, and in addition to other assets, she has $100,000 in cash. She'd like to preserve it for her daughter who really needs the money. Okay, so learning that she can't have more than $2,000, she writes a check to her daughter for $100,000. She's in the nursing home. She applies for Medi-Cal. They ask her, they say, did you make any gifts within the prior 30 months? Every other state in the country, they ask about 60 months. In California, we're unique, only 30 months. But she did, right? She made that $100,000 gift. She has no money, so she needs Medi-Cal. Well, that $100,000 gift made her ineligible for Medi-Cal for about 13 months. Okay? Catastrophic outcome. Now, and Mark said it earlier, here's where we need to have you guys just listen, suspend logic. Just put logic outside the room right now and listen, because what I'm about to say is true. Okay, instead of writing a check for $100,000, what she does, she writes 10 checks, all within the same month, to her daughter, each for $10,000. She just gave away $100,000. They ask on the Medi-Cal application, did you make any gifts in the prior 30 months? She said, yes, I did. I made these 10 gifts. Okay, what's the outcome? Instead of a 13-month period of ineligibility for Medi-Cal, the period of ineligibility in light of those gifts goes from 13 months, it goes down to 1 month. Is that logical? Not necessarily. In other states, federal law mandates that you aggregate the gifts for that calculation, but we don't have to do that in California. So each gift creates a 1 month period of ineligibility. They're all the same month. Okay? That's how the rules work. We're just the messenger here, you know, fair or unfair. By the way, there's the $15,000 annual exclusion, which is that's a tax thing that has no bearing here whatsoever. If you make that gift, you'd be ineligible for Medi-Cal for 1 month. So with William, by the way, that example that we had, if you think about, you know, about it conceptually, if $10,000 makes you ineligible for 1 month, a $20,000 gift would make you ineligible for 2 months. But if you give, you know, 10 of those gifts, that's $200,000 that you gave away. If there's 3 kids, it's actually $600,000 that you can give away. So the rules, again, are remarkable. Whenever we look at gifting, there are countless tax considerations. So don't go do this at home. You know, to do this planning properly, we have to be tax attorneys as well, which we are. There's property tax, capital gains tax, gift tax, estate tax. Have to have your eyes on all of these things. So, boy, that's an overview of an incredibly complex topic.
Well, didn't you, but by the way, didn't you just lecture to the Stanford Law School class yesterday about?
I did, yeah, exactly on this. They actually have an estate planning topic. The guy who teaches it, I think he'd admit it, I don't think he knows how to spell Medi-Cal. You know, it's not his world. So yeah, I was there talking about Medi-Cal, long-term care, special needs, and how tax interplays with it.
So you're trying to train the next generation of Stanford attorneys as well to understand this. So.
Yeah. I'm not convinced that any of them are going to join this field because they want to join the big firms, but you know, you never know. We're always hopeful.
Yeah. Yeah. So Mike, you want to talk about
this? Sure. So, okay. So again, you know, you want to stay at home. You say this to your family. You say this hopefully to your attorney because it's got to be integrated. It's got to be integrated into your planning. But you really have to ask yourself, does your family really get it? We, as we get older, we're expected to say this. You know, it's like, nice day, I want to stay at home. Sure, Mom, you know, I get it. Well, that's not enough. You really have to make sure that family members get it. There has to be that discussion where you bring it home to them and you make it very clear. In your durable power of attorney, in your advance directive, in your revocable trust, all three of those documents need to reinforce this point, state that you want to be at home and that your money is to be utilized to keep you at home if that is your goal. And your doctor has to be on board. I mean, one of the things you find all the time is the doctor says to the family, well, you know, your mom isn't doing so well. She had a fall. She really needs to be in a care facility. She's really not safe at home. And that's it. And you would say, if you could, you'd say, wait a minute, you forgot. I said, I want to stay at home. Hire somebody to keep me at home. So this doesn't happen naturally. You have to work at it. Family members have to be aware. So again, there has to be a discussion about these things. There has to be a realistic assessment of what your income is, your assets, how to plan for the cost of care. You know, one last thing I really want to emphasize about this is that when you look at inheritance calculators, when we look to see how much money do we need to retire the way we want to and all of that, this is very interesting. When you look at those calculators that Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley put up there, they do not include the cost of long-term care. And remember, 70% of us are going to need it. So you get false figures from these retirement calculators from the financial planners. We are cultivating relationships with financial planners who get it, who understand that this is part of the reality, and that it can be very expensive. And that affects how you invest your money. How liquid are you? Do you look to Medi-Cal or do you not? So again, we have to be realistic as we take all of these steps. Think broadly, make sure our documents speak to it. There's a presumption, if you have a trust and your kid takes over as trustee, that most trusts are written in such a way that you're supposed to take care of the beneficiary and take care of the assets, which often it translates into protect the assets. Well, again, you know, I'm a broken record on purpose because this is a huge deal. If you don't want to protect your assets for the next generations, if that's not your primary goal, you have to be over the top, explicit, and make sure that it happens. And obviously, it's hard to do, but it can be done.
Absolutely. And as we mentioned, solutions exist. There's no one size fits all solution. There's no one way that we all want to approach this. Some people say they want to stay at home, but then when they get to that stage of life, they're actually like, well, you know what? This community looks pretty good. Now, the coronavirus stuff has, I think, put a damper on some of that, given what's been happening at some care facilities. But regardless, you need to communicate with your family. And if you don't have kids, you have to make sure that you have great estate planning documents and you talk to whoever you're appointing to help you out if you need it. Because if you don't have kids, you really have to think long and hard about who you trust to step in and help manage your assets if you can't manage them for yourself, and communicate with them to make sure that you're kept safe and that you're kept at the place you want to stay at. So critical to communicate with people. Coordinating across generations wherever possible is huge. You know, talk to your kids about this. Kids, if you haven't talked to your parents about this, do it. You know, have this conversation. We always recommend don't frame this around death in nursing homes. It should be much more about your hopes and your dreams and what you want. You know, we work so hard through our entire lives to save up and to make sure that we have some flexibility. It's such a waste if you don't ever talk to your family because it's a tough subject. Talk to your kids, talk to your parents. And then that can lead to some great, very substantive conversations about values, about goals. And then it can get to how can we actually achieve this and make sure assets are situated well, to make sure our estate planning documents are consistent with this, and that everybody's on the same page. You know, we've helped thousands of families in the Bay Area, and we can literally say we've saved tens of millions of dollars for families when they planned ahead, when they need long-term care. Maybe more. We haven't really kept track. It could be in the hundreds of millions at this point for families who take charge ahead of time. And we want to offer comprehensive ways of thinking. And whether you work with us or someone else, just make sure you think in a comprehensive way, not just home equity, not just investing, not just the estate plan. Ideally, they should all lead to an overall conversation and way of bringing this all together. We want to revisit quickly just the critical documents you have to have. We gave another talk previously. I think we have that link available. We can certainly make that available to everybody in this webinar series about the core legal planning documents you need to have. We want to revisit those, and these need to be up to date as part of this. If these aren't there, these are kind of the foundation of long-term care planning. A revocable living trust, depending on when you did it, it may make a lot of sense to revisit it. Even if you like the choices for backup trustees, there can be big tax reasons for restructuring your trust. Estate tax laws have changed a lot in the last few years. Your durable power of attorney document, if you become incapacitated, This is the document that empowers someone you trust to manage your day-to-day finances. And all that gifting language, all those gifting strategies Mike talked about. Well, if you can't make decisions and someone needs to do this for you, your durable power of attorney document has to be very clear that they're allowed to do it. If you have just a standard check the boxes power of attorney, it's not enough. Someone who steps into your shoes is not allowed to transfer assets out of your name. They have to go to court to do it. Your advance directive, you're going to have language that's very specific about what you'd like from a medical care perspective. There's another really powerful step you can take to protect the next generation, where you can leave assets for your kids where it's protected from divorces, from lawsuits, and from future estate taxes, no matter what happens. Again, not the focus here, but there are really powerful things you can do for the next generation. If you leave assets to your child via a family protection trust, generically known as a dynasty trust, if they get divorced, you can protect the money that you leave them from divorces. If they're sued, they can be protected from litigants to a large extent. When your children pass away, the money you leave them can be protected from estate taxes. We don't know what's going to happen with the estate tax law in the next few years, but you may notice we're running up trillions of dollars in debt right now to cover this crisis. We think it's very likely these laws could get more strict. Creating a family protection trust for your kids, the next generation, can be a way to protect potentially millions of dollars. Even if you're not a multimillionaire now, you're looking 10, 20, 30 years in the future. So we just want to make you guys aware of this because we get a lot of questions about this trust every talk that we get. So, and your children can be in charge of your assets. And all these long-term care strategies, when we talk about transferring assets or leaving assets to the next generation, you can do it in a way where these assets are protected for your kids, your grandkids, and even your great-grandkids. That's another area where we always want to make sure you're informed about these options. There are really powerful ways you can protect future generations and ensure great long-term care for you. So as we wrap up, and we will have time for just a couple questions, we want to just explain, if you want to talk to us, we can help you in a few different ways. We can help review your existing documents. If you don't have an estate plan, we can absolutely help you to take that, put that into place, and we can help you think about a comprehensive strategy. Again, we are solution agnostic. We are not there to sell you a life insurance policy or an annuity or anything specifically. We bring those pieces together or help you think about them from an estate and tax planning standpoint to make sure that you know all the options that are available to you, so you can choose how you want to proceed. So we really enjoy working with families on a multi-generational level. And I think, Mike, do you want to address the danger of denial?
Yeah, I've been doing this kind of work for 40 plus years. And the number of times I've heard these kinds of things in one phrase or another, it's amusing and it's kind of a shame. Okay. Denial. I'm one of that 30%. I'm so healthy. I'm special. I'm not going to need long-term care. Not me. I'm Mike. I'm powerful. I will live forever. People kind of say that jokingly, but I swear from actions, some of us believe that.
No. By the way, in some meetings, I'll hear people say, "Well, if I die, then." I mean, they'll literally say, "If I die," and not to be morbid, but we don't have a solution for that yet.
Okay, look, I have to interject. I just doing some work for a very successful venture capitalist guy. And honestly, this is no joke. His body is going to be cryogenically preserved because he believes the technology, the science will someday allow his body to be revitalized and he'll be back. So, you never know. Okay. And then the last denial, it's really a denial, is if you have really simple documents, you did them 10 years ago. I'm vanilla. Nobody is vanilla. Every family has issues, every single one of them. So if you have simple documents, simple doesn't work. So don't let that be an excuse to not take care of your planning.
Yeah, and so we want to make an offer to everybody here. We can take a look at your existing documents. We invite you to work with us, and we want to offer a free consultation to anybody here if you want it. No pressure at all. You can talk to us and just put that information in the drawer and never come back to us, no strings attached. We want to offer you a free consultation with us. If you want to contact us, we are happy to set that up in the next couple of weeks. Again, we'd love to get the chance. If you have other questions, contact us. Here's some ways to get a hold of us. This is our office number, 650-493-8070. You just mentioned you were part of the Stanford Alumni Villages webinar today and request your free consultation. You can also email Ashley on our team, ashley.beck@gilfix.com. to set that up. We'd love to set up a free time to chat with you. We know you have a lot of questions we probably didn't get to today. We just gave kind of like a mini master class, well, hopefully a master class on some very tricky subjects. So if you have some questions for your own family, your own situation, contact us. We're happy to set up a free consultation with you. No strings attached. We just want to be here to educate you. And if it makes sense for us to help you, that's great. And if we can just help you and your family during these challenging times, that's great too. We love the Stanford and the Villages community. We're a part of these communities. So we want to be there for you. And on that note,
I want to thank Mike and Mark for being there for us and for giving us an entire Stanford Law School session course in an hour. That was a lot of information, and what I really want to hone in on, what Mike and Mark said, is have the conversation about your hopes, dreams, what you want. As I said, we all, you know, if we die, unfortunately 70% of us are going to need long-term care. So thank you, Mike and Mark, for all of the information you've given us over the last 3 weeks. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We did get a couple questions in the chat, so I know we are at time. So for people who need to drop off, you can drop off. And if you do want to hang on, if Mike and Mark, do you have a few moments?
I have to go and take a dog to a vet.
Okay.
Yes, I have a couple. Yeah, I have a couple minutes.
Okay, so
I'll hang around.
Thank you everybody for joining us, and thank you Mike and Mark. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
And if you've got questions, you can do them in the chat. And Mark, can you see the questions or should I read them out?
I can, yeah. So I can answer a couple questions, then I do have to run, but some good questions. So one question was, how do you know if you have a hybrid long-term care policy? And how do I know? Well, the key thing is talk to your insurance broker. If you can't, if you got it a long time ago and you can't find them, there is a long-term care insurance expert that we've worked with for many years, and he's very generous with his time in looking at these, even if there's nothing in it for him. So you can contact us and he can take a look, but you know, definitely contact your insurance agent. Or whoever the current agent is, if the person you bought it from a long time ago isn't available, they can break down what you have. And sometimes you can convert an existing policy from one type to another. Sometimes that's not a possibility. Most likely, if you don't know it's a hybrid policy, it probably isn't. So here is a question of, are people who work their lifetime in a different state, but then move to California able to get Medi-Cal, or do they have to use the rules of the state that they lived in? Because as we mentioned, rules in Ohio, for example, are much more strict than the rules in California. The answer is no. If you are a resident of California, you get Medi-Cal benefits. You are under Medi-Cal rules. Now, conversely, if you move out of California to another state, you're under that state's rules. But the state of California is thrilled to have you because we tax everybody at a much higher income tax rate than virtually every other state. So Medi-Cal is one of the very few areas where California is actually more generous and more beneficial than other states. So it's totally fine if you lived your whole life in another state and spent, paid into a different system. That's okay, because a lot of people leave California too, and they don't get the benefit. So Constitution allows us to move from state to state and take advantage of this. One question is, does Medi-Cal pay for nursing home care? Does it pay for other categories of care, like assisted living facilities or residential care facilities, or is it only nursing home care? So Medi-Cal really only pays for nursing home care, and it has to be a Medi-Cal certified skilled nursing facility. The majority of nursing homes in California still do accept Medi-Cal. Some people ask us, well, aren't those a lot worse than the ones that don't accept Medi-Cal? And some of them are, but it's so case by case. There are really expensive nursing homes that suck. There are cheaper ones that are great, and there's everything in between. And a nursing home that was horrible 5 years ago might be great now because they have new management. So you have to keep an eye on it. And as Mike said, the cookies and thorns strategy. Bring cookies to the staff, but be a thorn in their side. If you have a parent who's in a nursing home, let them know you're there. Let them know you're keeping an eye on things. And we've seen time and time again, someone spending $20,000 a month in a gold-plated nursing home who doesn't have anybody visiting often gets worse care than someone who's in a Medi-Cal certified, less nice nursing home where they have a child or a loved one who's regularly checking in because the staff knows, hey, we gotta stay on top of this or we're gonna be in trouble. Whereas if there's no one checking in on you, unfortunately, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So you have to really ideally have someone who's there as your advocate. And for someone in their 30s, who's just starting to think about these issues, what is the starting point when it comes to long-term care? Well, I think the starting point is making sure that you have a great estate plan in place, especially if you have kids. You got to have the trust, the power of attorney, the advance directive that ensures you can name guardians who would step in for your kids, that your assets go to your family if something happens to you. And sorry, I hope everyone can still see me. My computer just had a little issue. But you got to start with the estate plan, and then you talk to your financial advisor about, potentially buying into long-term care insurance or buying life insurance. It can be very inexpensive if you start in your 30s. Costs very little per year, and you can build up incredible benefits. So all of this, again, the linchpin is having a great estate plan. If you don't have that, all this can fall apart, because if you become incapacitated at any point without a trust, power of attorney, advance directive, there might be no one who can step in for you, or your family might have to go to court to do that. So again, if you have other questions, we're happy to set up free consultations to go through these in more depth. Contact us. Our screen is still up. Easy to find us, gilfix.com. You can follow me on Facebook. It's Facebook.com/Mark Gilfix. But on that note, I do have to run. But Donna, thank you so much. We're going to make this available as a YouTube video to anybody who wants to share it. So Donna, we're going to make that link available to you, and we hope to do more talks in the future. But thank you guys so much. This has been, a privilege to talk to you.
Thank you very much. And I will be sending out the link to everybody by early next week. So for anybody who has attended any of the 3 sessions, we'll be sending you out information and contact information. And I'm going to everyone. Thank you very much, Mark, and please pass it on to Mike as well. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks everybody for joining us.